It is Tuesday. It is June 24th. And it has been, 5-6 days since the Karen Read verdict. It is time for us to have a chance to talk about the Karen Read verdict, to talk about everyone who has been talking after the verdict. Today, we're going to talk about the interviews that everybody has been giving. We're going to watch some video clips. We have Brian Albert and then Jen and Matt McCabe, who spoke with ABC. So many statements. This is from a segment on Dateline. I think they also put it on Nightline, and they have clipped it in a bunch of different ways.
I immediately thought something had happened to one of her children or one of my children, because why else is she in my bedroom at 6:30 in the morning right now?
And what did she tell you?
She said, John's out front. I think John's dead out front. I said, what the are you talking about, Jen? And I'm like, who? I didn't know.
You still didn't piece it together.
I didn't understand what she was talking about, because why would John be out front of my house?
So massively confusing.
And then what did you do to wrangle the dog? She comes barging in the house at 6:30 in the morning, and you're like, what the fuck, Jen? And then what?
There are police officers, EMTs on your front lawn. You're an officer. Why don't you just go outside and investigate or take a look?
I'm not a Canton police officer. I'm a Boston.
Why would I go out there? I'm not a Canton cop. So you don't want to know what's happening on your lawn? It's the least curiosity I've ever seen from any human ever. You don't go outside and ask all of the cops what the fuck? Cops want to know what's happening in their neighborhood. Perhaps more than even members of the HOA. They want to know what's happening.
Outside and investigate or take a look.
I'm not a Canton police officer. I'm a Boston police officer.
And?
I was just woken up out of a cold sleep from hanging out the night before. By the time I came downstairs, the police were already in my house. How
long did it take you to get downstairs?
John was already gone. There was nobody to save. I would have taken a bullet for John O'Keefe because he was a fellow cop. That's the most ridiculous question that people always ask. It made zero sense. What am I supposed to do? Run out front in my underwear and start running yellow tape around the fire hydrant?
Over the course of the night.
No, I don't think you're going to run outside in your underwear and run yellow tape around a fire hydrant. But maybe go downstairs, go outside and say, hey, what's going on? I would like to see the full interview without the edits. That's never going to happen. That's not how media does things. They didn't ask, it seems, why 34 Fairview was sold and things like that. There's a lot that we did not see. It's really hard to evaluate an interview where everything's clipped down to like one sentence. It's interesting to hear Brian Albert answer the question that I have been asking. And the question from Brian Albert that a lot of us had is, why not go outside? And his response to that was essentially, why would I? Not verbatim, but I'm not a Canton cop. I'm a Boston cop. What am I supposed to do? Go down there and start running tape? Okay. Interesting. And maybe it's because the question was, wouldn't you go out to investigate? I've never had the question, why wouldn't you go investigate? It's not his to investigate. Why wouldn't you go out and ask? You knew that John was coming to your house. You knew he was invited to your house. You knew that at that moment, your sister-in-law's in the bedroom saying, a fellow Boston police officer is downstairs. And he said in the interview that Jen said, I thought he was dead. So you now have someone who is part of your agency dead outside. Investigating is not ever what I thought. It's the, what is happening? And also, are we safe? What do you think happened? Or also to give information. He's at your house. Hey, we all came home from the bar last night. They were supposed to come over. They never came in. We never saw them. Why is he here? How is he here? What is happening? Nobody thinks you're going to investigate, but the lack of curiosity still speaks very loudly to me. We only have a few clips from Proctor. I watched all of the Proctor interview, also an ABC interview that they did with 2020. It is interspersed quite a lot with other clips from a body in the snow. So Proctor sat down with an interview. They've teased clips on socials of Proctor. Not all of the clips are on social. The entire episode is on Hulu, which doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure it's elsewhere. But the entire episode is not yet on social media.
At what point did you develop such strong negative feelings about Karen Reed that you would say things like, hopefully she kills herself, or calling her the C word?
Those feelings developed as the case went on.
I mean, can you see how people might think, he was caught in this instance speaking about a suspect in this way. Maybe it's happened in other cases as well.
I 100% understand why people would think that. But when you have, a fellow police officer around my age, 2 kids of his own, it generates an emotion. And I expressed those emotions in a negative way, which I shouldn't have. I shouldn't even, been texting my friends anything. They are what they are. They don't define me as a person. They're regrettable.
Did you plant evidence?
Absolutely not. And I'm laughing because it's such a ridiculous accusation. It's something I would never do. I've never done.
Most people would.
And there's no evidence of it.
We're talking about people in your community, your neighbors, who believe it. This is not strangers. This is people in Canton. Why do you think that is?
That's just the loud minority. The silent majority we've had an overwhelming amount of support. They're just not out there tweeting.
I just don't understand the point of the interview. I don't. And I don't know if it's trying to change the opinions from those that didn't see him testify. I mean, I think a post on social media saying the testimony from the first trial says everything that it needs to say, it's here. If you need to say anything at all, but I don't know if anything needs to be said, especially while his appeal is still pending. I don't think this will change how his appeal is viewed, because I don't think there's much that he said in there is different maybe than what he said in the investigation, other than it's regrettable. He didn't say, I regret sending them. He didn't say, I regret saying it. He didn't say, I regret calling Karen Reed names. He didn't say, I understand the jury's verdict. There's a lot of things that weren't said. It was most unusual to me that he doubled down on, I would do nothing different in the investigation. That was the most surprising thing to me. The rest of it is in line with how he testified. Any part of the actual investigation you would do over. His answer was, because it has blown up into this crazy so-called conspiracy. Not, hey, because I've had a chance to step back and look at this case, I see where there are holes and I wish I had done these things better. No, it's because of what they're all saying, I wish I had protected myself better. That's how I read his statement. So Michael Proctor is trying to get his job back, seems to believe that it is unfair that he was fired over personal texts sent on a personal phone. Wouldn't have changed anything about the investigation. And is saddened and upset by how difficult this has been for him, and that his union rep took his uniforms and did not apologize to Karen Reed for the things that he said or the names that he called her, did not indicate any remorse that he tainted this investigation in such a way that there won't be justice for John O'Keefe. I don't think he takes that on himself. I don't think he sees that. And it seems the McCabes, the Alberts, they're all focusing on one side of like, everyone's saying this thing, and that doesn't even make sense to us. Everyone's just saying this thing over here. But it allows for them to just use that as a straw man and not focus on the odd behavior, to not focus on the poor investigation, and to not bring it back to the middle, which is where there are a lot of questions. It's, all these people are saying this thing and that doesn't even make sense. Okay, well, the investigation doesn't make sense. And so I don't think we'll ever get answers in the middle. And that's unfortunate. Today, a lot happened because everyone's got so much to say, so much to say, so much to say. We also saw statements from Trooper Proctor and from Brian Albert, Chris Albert, Brian Albert's wife, and from Matt McCabe and Jen McCabe. Interestingly enough, Proctor says that there's nothing he would do differently in the investigation, but because of all of this, stuff online, maybe he would have looked at a few other cars just to say we did. It's a direct quote from his interview. He also said that these strong feelings against Karen Reed developed as the investigation went on, but that's not what the timing on those text messages really revealed in trial. He said that there was no relationship between him and any of the witnesses, and a distant relationship to Chris Albert and his wife. And Brian Albert answered the question that I had been asking, and many of you had been asking, and many of everyone had been asking, which is, but why didn't you come out of the house? And his answer essentially boils down to, but why would I? He said, I'm not Canton PD, I'm Boston PD. What am I going to do? Run out there in my underwear and start running crime scene tape? The interviews were interesting. What also was notable, though, in recounting the morning when Jen McCabe came flying into her sister's bedroom where her sister and her husband were cold asleep, his words, not mine, no one mentioned, and then I had to wrangle the dog. And then I had to grab the dog. Then I had to go feed the dog. Then the dog wanted to go out and go to the bathroom because now everybody's awake in the middle of the morning when they weren't going to be. There was no conversation at all about what happened next. It was Jen came into the bedroom. I had no idea what she was saying. And Brian Albert said in his interview, I was like, what the fuck? But then he didn't go outside and ask the officers that were out there that same question. Because why would I? And Proctor was asked, did you plant evidence? And his answer was absolutely not. Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Law Nerd app at lawnerd.app.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.